Ethan Ryder adjusted the controls on his small freighter, the Starwind, squinting at the blinking warning lights flashing across his dashboard. "Come on, not now," he muttered, wrestling with the ship's stubborn navigation system. "I've got to get these supplies to Epsilon Prime before they start a riot over there." He was supposed to be making an easy delivery to a mining colony. Instead, he found himself careening through a treacherous asteroid belt. "Great," he sighed, his brow furrowing as the ship jolted violently. "This is just the kind of adventure I didn't sign up for." He toggled a switch, trying to re-establish the navigational data, but a surge caused the screen to flicker and die. "Of course. Just perfect." Ethan slammed a fist on the dashboard. The Starwind was getting old, and its quirks were becoming more cumbersome every day. "Power down, Ethan," he told himself, taking a deep breath. "Just focus." He maneuvered the ship around an enormous asteroid, sweat drenching his brow as he calculated his next move. In a moment of desperation, he spun the controls, steering away from the belt in a burst of instinct. As the ship stabilized, he caught sight of the vibrant green and blue planet below. "Well, that's new," Ethan said, eyes wide with curiosity. "Looks worth checking out." A smile crept onto his face as he began the descent. "Hope they have some decent food down there." Moments later, the Starwind landed on a patch of smooth terrain surrounded by towering trees dripping with strange iridescent fruits. After performing a quick systems check to ensure the ship would be all right alone, Ethan stepped out, taking in the new sights and sounds. "What in the galaxy?" he whispered, awestruck by the alien landscape around him. The air was thick with the scent of flowers he had never encountered, and birds with colorful plumage soared through the sky. Suddenly, a rustling noise caught his attention. "Who's there?" Ethan called out, turning toward the sound. He braced himself, half expecting some kind of dangerous creature to appear. To his surprise, a figure emerged from the foliage, walking gracefully toward him. The being was tall and willowy, with shimmering lavender skin that glimmered under the sunlight. Long, flowing hair cascaded down her back like liquid silver, and her large, expressive eyes locked onto his. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice melodic, sounding like a mix of wind chimes and gentle waves. Ethan blinked, momentarily speechless. I'm Ethan," he replied, mentally kicking himself for his stutter. "Just visiting." "Visiting?" she echoed, tilting her head slightly in curiosity. "This is a sacred place. Many who come here do not leave." "Oh, I'm just passing through," he said quickly. "I had a bit of a navigation issue, but it looks like a beautiful planet." "What's it called?" "Elithra," she said, stepping closer. "And I am Lyra, a daughter of this world. Tell me, Ethan, why did you come here?" Ethan could see a mixture of wariness and intrigue written across her face. "I had to make a delivery to Epsilon Prime, but I sort of got lost." He gestured back toward his ship. "My ship is not the latest model and it decided to get a little dramatic on me." "I see," Lyra replied, a hint of amusement dancing in her eyes. "Perhaps the stars guided you here for a reason." "You could say that," he said, starting to relax. "So, what's a daughter of Elithra doing out here in the woods?" "I was gathering resources for my people," she explained, glancing back toward the forest, her gaze turning serious. "We are facing a great danger from the Harrows. They threaten our way of life." "Harrows?" Ethan asked, furrowing his brow. "What are they?" Lyra took a deep breath, her expression shifting to one of concern. "They are invaders, ruthless beings who extract our planet's resources without regard for its well-being." "Sounds like corporate greed," Ethan said, shaking his head. "I've seen plenty of that back on Earth. We do not have the means to protect ourselves. Technology is foreign to us and we rely on our connection to nature," she continued, her voice filled with urgency. "But as you are here now, perhaps you can help us." "Me?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "I'm just a delivery pilot, not a hero or anything. You arrived here by chance. You may know things we do not." Lyra's eyes glimmered with hope. "Please, I can show you our city and what you may be able to do." After a moment's hesitation, Ethan shrugged, feeling a strange pull of destiny. "All right, let's see what I can do. I'm game for a bit of adventure." As they walked through the vibrant forest, Lyra guided Ethan, sharing stories about her culture and the deep bonds her people had with their planet. Thriving cities made of living trees intertwined with technology they barely understood. Although it was different from what he was used to, there was an undeniable beauty to Elithra. In a clearing, they came upon an expanse that revealed a breathtaking cityscape glowing with bioluminescent flora. "Welcome to my home," Lyra said, pride shining in her eyes. "Wow." Ethan stared in awe, taking in the architecture that seemed to rise organically from the landscape. The buildings glimmered and the air hummed with life. "This is incredible." A smile spread across Lyra's face. "This is only the beginning. Come, let me introduce you to my people." As they entered the bustling city, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of purpose begin to form. He glanced over at Lyra, who was speaking with others around her, her laughter mingling with the sounds of the crowd. Maybe, just maybe, this wrong turn wasn't so bad after all. "So, what do I tell them?" Ethan asked, suddenly unsure of himself. "Just be honest," Lyra replied, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "They'll listen. You are one of us now." Before he could respond, a group of curious faces turned toward him and Ethan opened his mouth, ready to speak. "Hey, everyone. I'm Ethan. I kind of crashed here and, I might be able to help." He chuckled nervously, but Lyra's steady gaze encouraged him. "Thank you, Ethan," she said, her voice ringing with conviction against the backdrop of the city. "Together, we may find a way to save Elithra." Ethan felt a smile tug at the corners of his mouth. As the crowd began to cheer, he knew that this might be just the start of something incredible. Chapter 2: A Strained Reality. The sun began to dip low in the sky as Ethan stood in the heart of Elithra's vibrant city. The air was alive with the sounds of laughter, music, and the soft rustle of leaves moving in the gentle breeze. Lyra stood beside him, her lavender eyes twinkling with anticipation. "What now?" Ethan asked, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "What do you need me to do?" Lyra smiled warmly. "We need to gather more resources to fend off the Harrows. But first, I want you to meet my people. Understanding our culture will help you to help us." As they moved through the bustling crowd, Lyra introduced Ethan to various citizens. "This is Jalen," she said, motioning to a tall, muscular man with bright blue markings on his skin. "He's our chief engineer. He will help us access the technology we require." "Hey, Ethan." Jalen greeted, extending his hand. "I hear you're here to lend a hand. We could use someone with your practical skills." Ethan shook Jalen's hand firmly. "I'm no expert, but I've done my share of tinkering. What do you need fixed?" Jalen grinned. "Let's head to the workshop. We can show you what we have." "Lead the way," Ethan replied. As they walked, Lyra explained the significance of different locations. "Over there is the Hall of Elders," she said, gesturing to a grand structure. "It holds the accumulated wisdom of our civilization." "And that?" Ethan asked, eyeing a structure draped in bioluminescent vines. "That's our resource center. We collect materials from around Elithra there," Lyra said. "But since the Harrows arrived, we've had to restrict access." Ethan frowned. "That doesn't sound good. What are the Harrows doing?" "They drain the resources from the earth, leaving it barren." "Our citizens are afraid," she replied, her tone somber. "If we don't act soon, we'll lose everything." "Let's not let it come to that," Ethan said, trying to ease her worry. "I'm sure we can come up with something." Jalen led them to a workshop filled with various tools and contraptions. The walls were adorned with sketches of machines built from organic materials, blending nature and technology beautifully. "Welcome to our workshop," Jalen announced proudly. "This is where we create and repair devices to help our community." Ethan's eyes widened as he examined the tools. "This is amazing. You guys really know how to integrate technology." Lyra nodded. "We have learned to coexist with nature rather than oppose it. It's a delicate balance." "All right," Ethan said, rolling up his sleeves. "Let's see what you've got." Jalen brought over several broken devices. "These need repairs. They've been damaged by the Harrows during their raids. Can you fix them?" Ethan examined the first device, a small mechanical bird designed to scout the surroundings. "Should be simple enough," he said, taking a deep breath. He began working diligently while Jalen and Lyra watched. "The wiring is burnt out," he explained, meticulously replacing the components. "That's why it won't work." He could feel Lyra's gaze on him, a mix of admiration and curiosity. Ethan glanced up at her. "Have you done much engineering yourself?" "I've dabbled," she admitted, a hint of pride in her voice. "But I'm more attuned to nature. I like to listen to the whispers of the trees." "Whispers of the trees?" Ethan chuckled. "That sounds poetic." Lyra smiled, her eyes sparkling. "It's very much the truth. Our trees communicate with one another and respond to the world around them. We learn from them." Intrigued, Ethan looked around the workshop. "Maybe we could incorporate some of that principle in our designs. Use natural flows and energies." "Like what?" Jalen asked, intrigued. Think about wind or sunlight. If we can create mechanisms that work with these natural elements, they would be more efficient and sustainable, Ethan replied. Interesting, Lyra said, her gaze focused on him. Can you explain further? As we work on fixing these machines, let's brainstorm other ideas too. We'll need backers, scouts, and observation tools to confront the Harrow's next move, Ethan suggested, already starting to formulate a plan. Sounds like you have a tactical mind, Jalen said, nodding eagerly. I like it. So how do we start? Ethan asked, excitement building within him. Let's focus on the scouting device first, Jalen replied as Ethan finished up with the mechanical bird. If we can spot the Harrow's movements ahead of time, we can prepare. After a few hours of collaboration and brainstorming, they had repaired the mechanical bird and designed plans for a larger flying vessel that would utilize natural energy sources. Let's test this out, Ethan said, placing the bird on a nearby perch. Ready? Lyra and Jalen held their breath as Ethan activated the device. The mechanical bird chirped electronically, causing the others to gasp in awe. It flapped its wings and took off into the sky, gliding smoothly above the forest. Look at it go! Lyra exclaimed, clapping her hands in delight. Not too shabby, huh? Ethan grinned, feeling a swell of pride. He turned to Jalen, who was nodding in appreciation. Great work, Ethan. We can create more of these now, Jalen said. They'll be invaluable for scouting. As they watched the mechanical bird soar overhead, Lyra leaned close to Ethan, her voice low. Thank you for being here. You have no idea how much this means to us. Ethan met her gaze, feeling a warm rush. Of course, Lyra. I'm glad I can help and glad to be here with you. Their eyes lingered for a moment longer than necessary, and Ethan felt a flutter in his stomach. If they were to win this fight, they would have to rely on each other, not just for strategy but for strength. Just then, the mechanical bird darted down, landing perfectly on Ethan's outstretched arm. He chuckled. Looks like I'm not the only one who's ready to get to work. Let's do this. Jalen exclaimed, clapping Ethan on the back. We have a lot to accomplish. Lyra nodded eagerly. The plan is coming together. We can save our home. With newfound determination, the three of them set to work, crafting tools and strategies, their laughter echoing through the workshop, blending with the sounds of the city around them. As the night deepened, Ethan realized he was not just an outsider anymore, he had become woven into the very fabric of this fledgling fight for Elithra. Chapter 3, Links Unseen. Ethan awoke the next morning to the sound of soft chirping from the mechanical bird resting beside him. Blinking away sleep, he sat up, recalling the events of the previous day with a smile. Elithra felt more like home than anywhere he had been in years. Good morning, Ethan, a familiar voice said, pulling him from his thoughts. He turned to see Lyra standing framed in the doorway, her hair catching the morning sunlight. Morning. What's the plan today? He replied, stretching. We're gathering at the resource center to prepare for the next phase of our strategy, she explained. Jalen and the others are already there. Got it. He raced through his morning routine and followed Lyra as she led him through the vibrant streets toward the resource center. The air was alive with energy, people were bustling about, preparing for the day's work. As they arrived, Jalen was already assembling a group of citizens. Ethan. Just in time, he called out, waving him over. Today, we'll gather resources and conduct a full assessment of the resource center. We need to expand your bird's capabilities. Sounds great, Ethan said, stepping closer to the group, feeling a sense of camaraderie building among them. What do you have in mind? We need to examine our raw materials, wood, minerals, and maybe some crystals. They could enhance our technology, Jalen explained, leading Ethan and Lyra into the center. Rows of stacked materials covered the expansive room, each labeled and organized. I can help with the materials, Lyra said, stepping forward. I know where to find the best quality. Perfect. You and Ethan can coordinate that while I inspect the existing technology, Jalen added, his excitement contagious. Let's do it. Ethan replied, clapping his hands together. After a brief discussion, they divided into pairs. While Jalen headed off to check the devices, Lyra and Ethan made their way to the nearby forest where the most valuable materials were said to be found. Where are we going first? Ethan asked, following Lyra as she glided through the tall trees, expertly maneuvering around the thick roots. There's a grove about an hour from here. It's known for its unique crystal growths that amplify energy, she replied, clearly eager to reach their destination. Crystals, huh? Sounds like something I could work with, Ethan said, grinning. You'll have to show me how they work. They resonate with the natural energy of the planet, Lyra explained. When incorporated into our designs, they can enhance our machines in ways we can't yet imagine. They continued deeper into the woods, and Ethan couldn't help but marvel at the beauty surrounding them. This place is incredible, he breathed, running his fingers over the bark of a nearby tree. How did you even come to live here? Lyra paused mid-step, contemplating the question. We've been here for generations, living in harmony with the land. My ancestors taught us to listen, to learn from our surroundings. He watched her closely, sensing a deeper connection between her and this world. It must be amazing to have that kind of relationship with nature. I've always felt sort of disconnected. Lyra turned to him, her expression softening. It's never too late to reconnect. This planet has a way of teaching us if we're open to it. Ethan smiled. I'll take your word for it. After walking for some time, they finally arrived at the grove, a stunning sight with crystals jutting out of the earth like shimmering stalagmites. Sunlight refracted off their surfaces, scattering iridescent colors all around. Wow! Ethan exclaimed, stepping forward. This is incredible. How do we collect these without damaging anything? Lyra picked up a small stone that resembled a hammer. Here, we can carefully chip away at the base without harming the roots or the tree. All right, Ethan replied, taking the stone from her and kneeling by the closest crystal formation. He began to work meticulously, focused on removing the crystal while preserving the surrounding plants. Just a little bit more, he murmured to himself. As he carefully broke away the earth, he felt Lyra's gaze on him. You're really good at that, she said, a smile gracing her lips. Next time, we should make a device that can extract them without the manual labor. Now you're talking. Ethan grinned as he finally freed a small, shimmering crystal. Got it. Perfect. Lyra clapped her hands in excitement. Let's collect a few more. For the next hour, they worked side by side, laughter and conversation flowing easily between them. Each time they unearthed a crystal, Lyra offered insights about their properties. Look at this one, she said, holding up a dark blue crystal. This could enhance thermal energy. Thermal energy, huh? Ethan replied, eyeing it. That might actually complement our designs for the scouting device. They continued collecting, and as Lyra dug for another crystal, she looked up. Why did you become a delivery pilot, Ethan? He paused, considering her question. Honestly, I wanted freedom. I didn't like being tied down to one place. It felt freeing to see different worlds, but it also got lonely. Lyra's expression turned thoughtful. I understand. But isn't it nice to find a place where you feel useful? That's the truth. He smiled, feeling a warmth when he thought about Elithra. I never thought I'd care about something so much. She sighed contentedly. I'm glad you're here, Ethan. You bring a different perspective that we really need. With the pile of crystals growing, Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment. I think we've gathered enough. Ready to head back? Lyra nodded eagerly. Yes. We need Jalen to check their compatibility with the existing technology. Walking back, the atmosphere shifted slightly, a sense of urgency permeating the air. Ethan noticed Lyra's demeanor change. Her earlier lightness was replaced with concern. Is everything all right? He asked, glancing over at her. The harrows have been sighted near the outskirts of our city. We need to be quick, she replied, her eyes narrowing with determination. Do you think they've caught on to our plans? Ethan asked, picking up his pace. I don't know, but we must be prepared, she said, grit in her voice. Once we get back, we need to share the news with Jalen. Let's go then, Ethan said, matching her pace. They hurried through the forest, and soon they arrived back at the resource center. Just as they entered, Jalen was waiting, looking up from a device he was assembling. Did you collect the crystals? He asked, eyes hopeful. Yes, and we found some amazing ones. Ethan replied, talking. SD, while hoping for the best, Jalen replied. Let's gather everyone and discuss our options. As they summoned the citizens, Ethan looked at Lyra, a newfound determination in their shared gaze. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The energy in the room intensified as they prepared for the challenges ahead, each person contributing to the strategy. Together, they were ready to fight for their world, fueled by a mixture of fear and resolve, the link between their fates forging a bond stronger than either could have imagined. Chapter 4, Rise of the Phoenix. The tension in the resource center was palpable as the citizens of Elithra gathered. Faces reflected varying degrees of fear and determination. Ethan clutched the crystals tightly, feeling their smooth surfaces cool against his skin. Every second felt crucial. Everyone, thank you for coming, Jalen began, stepping to the center of the gathered crowd. His voice resonated through the room, grounding the anxious citizens. We've received word that the harrows are closing in. We must act quickly. What do we do? A woman shouted from the back, her voice trembling with anxiety. They'll destroy everything. I won't let that happen. Jalen declared firmly. We need to utilize our resources and technology in a smart way. We won't face them hidden without a plan. Ethan. Lyra called out, stepping beside Jalen. You've seen their technology, how do we counter it? I don't have all the answers, but we have some advances now, Ethan replied, glancing at the gathered crystals. If we integrate these crystals into our devices, we might amplify our energy shields or even disrupt their technology. Can that really work? Jalen asked, clearly skeptical yet intrigued. It's worth a shot, Ethan said, feeling the adrenaline surge through him. But we need to set up the right devices first. We could modify the scouting bird and build a larger one that could carry the energy directly to where we'll need it. Jalen nodded, his expression sharpening with focus. Let's split into teams. I can take a few to enhance the technology. Ethan, can you lead the team that gathers the materials from the outskirts? Absolutely, Ethan replied, rallying the group. We'll need everything we can find to create our makeshift defenses. Lyra stepped forward. I want to go with you, Ethan. I know the best places to find materials while staying under the radar. Count me in, Jalen said, glancing around. The rest of you, listen to Lyra and Ethan. They'll guide you. Let's get moving. As the crowd broke up into smaller groups, Ethan felt a rush of purpose. He gathered his team, which included a few resourceful Illithrans who had worked on machinery before. All right, everyone. We'll head toward the edge of the forest to gather whatever we can find. We'll set up near the cliffs where we can hide and stay out of sight. Let's go, Lyra said, leading the way. The team moved swiftly, navigating through the dense underbrush. Ethan felt Lyra's presence beside him, a comforting reminder that he wasn't alone in this. Do you think we'll be able to confront them without any casualties? Ethan asked, glancing sideways. If we're smart about it, yes, she replied calmly. We know this land better. We can use ambush tactics, stay hidden, and strike when the time is right. Ethan nodded, feeling reassured. We'll have the element of surprise on our side then. It's crucial. Soon, they reached the cliffs, a series of rocky outcroppings that jutted out from the earth. This is our base of operations, Ethan announced, pointing out areas with good vantage points. Let's split up. I'll check the caves for any leftover resources. A young man named Orion said, eager to contribute. I'll help you, another woman chimed in, her fiery red hair glimmering in the sunlight. As they organized into groups, Ethan turned to Lyra. What do you think we should focus on first? I believe we need flexible materials we can use for improvisation, bamboo-like structures, or durable vines, she said, scanning the area. They can serve as barriers or even traps. Right, let's get to work. Ethan moved with purpose, scavenging the area for supplies. He found various lengths of sturdy vines and some palm-like leaves and began gathering them. Got some good stuff, Orion shouted, emerging from a cave with a handful of shiny stones and sharp flint. Nice work, Ethan called back. That'll be great for making tools. The team continued searching and gathering supplies. Lyra's insights about the plants and materials were proving vital, and the way she moved through the trees made it look effortless. Ethan admired her more with each passing second. You're really amazing at this, Ethan said as they stopped for a moment to catch their breath. You know so much about your home. I'm impressed. Lyra smiled, brushing her hair back. Thank you, Ethan. I believe everyone has something unique to offer. You're good at thinking outside the box, too. Each of us plays a role. Teamwork makes it happen, he replied, feeling the camaraderie grow. After a couple of hours of gathering, they reconvened at the cliffs with an abundance of materials. We have everything we need, Orion said excitedly, laying out their findings. Now, what's next? Another team member asked, a hint of uncertainty in their voice. Now we build, Ethan declared, feeling the weight of determination settle within him. Let's use these materials to create barriers and traps along the approach paths. Lyra, what do you think? I'll help them set up fortifications, she said. We can use the vines to create tripwires and nets. Great idea. We'll fashion the barriers between the cliffs and the forest entrance. Ethan added, glancing at the others. Let's move quickly. As they worked, Ethan saw the team coming together. They collaborated, laughed, and shared ideas, and the sense of unity grew even stronger. Each person contributed something unique, weaving their individual abilities into a collective effort. Lyra and Ethan worked side by side, rigging traps and fortifications. Their hands brushed against each other as they passed materials, and Ethan felt the connection flow between them. This is coming together better than I expected, Ethan said, tying a knot in some vines. I couldn't have done this without your help. You're doing great, Lyra replied, returning his gaze. It takes everyone pulling together. As the evening wore on, the shadows began to stretch across the landscape, signaling that time was running short. We have to finalize the last of the traps, Ethan urged as they completed the final touches. Look at all we've accomplished, Orion exclaimed, stepping back to admire their handiwork. Lyra nodded in agreement. Now we need to hide ourselves and wait. We're ready for whatever comes our way. Right, Ethan said, inhaling deeply. It's going to be a long night. As they settled in for the wait, Ethan couldn't shake the anticipation. He glanced sideways at Lyra, who was watching the horizon intently. How do you stay so calm? It helps to connect with the earth and listen to its whispers, she replied quietly. I trust in the land and in my people. That's a good way to look at things, he said, admiring her perspective. I wish I had that kind of assurance. You do, Ethan, she said, meeting his gaze. You've already proven that by being here with us, willing to fight for something greater. Just then, the distant sound of engines rumbled in the air, breaking the stillness. Ethan's heart raced as shadowy figures began to take shape on the horizon. It's time, Lyra whispered, her voice steady despite the tension. Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. They were ready for this fight, together standing side by side, willing to face the challenges that lay ahead. The weight of fear transformed into resolve, and as the first of the harrows approached, they braced themselves. Chapter 5, New Beginnings. The night air was thick with tension as Ethan crouched behind the makeshift barrier, heart pounding in his chest. He glanced at Lyra, who was peering at the distant figures emerging from the darkness. The sound of their engines grew louder, reverberating through the trees. Do you see how many of them there are? Ethan whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. More than I expected, Lyra replied, her expression fierce yet calm. We need to stick to the plan. Stay out of sight until the moment's right. Ethan nodded, clenching his fists. Let's keep an eye on their movements. They might be scouting the area. Jalen, sitting nearby with a group of warriors, spoke up. We can't let them find us. The elements we set up should help keep them distracted if they come close. A dim light grew in the distance as the harrow's vehicles reached the edge of the forest. They're splitting up, Jalen said, squinting to see better. 2 groups are heading toward the northern path. We should signal the others. Lyra, can you use the crystals in any way to create a distraction? Ethan asked, keeping his voice low. Yes, she said, her eyes sparkling with determination. I can channel the energy to create a pulse when they're close enough. Do it on my count, Ethan urged, a plan beginning to form in his mind. We'll use the pulse to lure them toward the traps we set up. Ready when you are, she said, her fingers twitching with energy. The harrows advanced, searching methodically. Ethan could see their silhouettes moving, dark figures against the softly lit forest. Now, he shouted. Lyra raised her hands, and a brilliant glow emanated from the crystals. An energy pulse rippled through the air, producing a sound like a distant roar that caught the harrow's attention. The dark silhouettes shifted, turning toward the light. Let's move, Ethan commanded as the harrows drew closer, intrigued by the distraction. He knew they had to strike before their enemies realized it was a trap. The team sprang into action, emerging from their hiding spots. Jalen led the charge, shouting commands. To the cliffs. We need to drive them in. Ethan and Lyra fell into step behind him, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The harrows approached, their confusion sparking an opportunity. Go for the traps, Ethan shouted, pointing toward the carefully hidden nets and barriers. As the harrows stumbled forward, the first group fell into the traps, ensnared in nets woven from vines. We've got them, Jalen yelled as he pushed forward. Keep pushing, Ethan shouted, encouraging his team. Don't give them a chance to regroup. The energy in the air was electric, and even as they fought, Ethan felt alive. They were defending their home, fighting for Elithra. Lyra remained at his side, using her crystals to disorient the enemy. Watch out, she screamed, pulling Ethan aside just as a harrow swung a weapon dangerously close. Ethan ducked, instincts kicking in. Thanks for that, Ethan replied, quickly regaining his footing. Let's flank them from the left. With renewed vigor, they charged, pushing the harrows toward the cliff's edge. As they advanced, more nets were deployed, catching several more enemies off guard. "They're starting to panic," Jalen shouted. "Keep the momentum." Ethan could see doubt creeping into the eyes of the heroes, an opportunity they couldn't afford to miss. "We can do this," he yelled, rallying the group once more. "We have the upper hand." Lyra focused on using her crystal powers, sending out pulses of energy to create random flashes across the battlefield. "It's disorienting them," she said, her voice rising above the chaos. "They're losing coordination." "That's it." Ethan fired back, determination lighting his eyes. "Let's keep pushing." As the battle raged, Ethan caught sight of a larger hero moving through the fray, directing the others. "There. That one looks like their leader. If we take him down, we can disrupt their command." "On it," Jalen agreed, determination sparking in his gaze. "Let's do this together, people." The team shifted their focus and Ethan led the charge toward the leader. They moved in unison, dodging strikes and countering. The hero leader, sensing the threat, swung viciously at them. "Watch out!" Ethan yelled as the enemy's weapon narrowly missed him. He spun to counter, redirecting his energy toward the hero's vulnerable side. Jalen struck from another direction, making contact that sent the leader staggering backward. "Now!" Jalen shouted, and with a swift team effort, they overwhelmed their opponent. Ethan swung again, catching the leader unprepared. The air crackled with energy as he landed a solid blow. They moved together, and in a flurry of blows, the leader went down. "Yes!" Ethan shouted, adrenaline roaring in his veins. "Now keep up the pressure. We can finish this." Seeing their leader fall, panic took hold of the remaining heroes. They struggled against the traps and nets, desperately trying to regroup but failing to maintain their focus. "Finish them off," Jalen shouted, followed by a battle cry that echoed through the forest. With their morale boosted, Ethan and Lyra fought alongside a group of Illithrans who were now emboldened. "Don't back down," Ethan echoed, urging his fellow fighters on. "We've got this." They surged forward, cutting off escape routes and enclosing the remaining heroes. The crackle of energy from the crystals surrounded them as Lyra harnessed their power, sending out bursts of energy that disoriented the stragglers. "Keep your formation," Jalen yelled. "We're almost there. Drive them back." Ethan felt the energy rise around him, and every swing, every cry from his team fueled him. They were no longer just warriors, they were a force fighting for their home. Before long, the heroes found themselves cornered. One by one, they surrendered, confusion and fear evident on their faces. "We did it!" Lyra exclaimed, breathless, as those who remained stepped forward, weapons lowered. "Yes, we did," Jalen echoed, his chest heaving. "No casualties on our side, either. Incredible, everyone." Ethan couldn't help but grin, pride swelling within him. "We made a good team." As everyone caught their breath, the reality of the situation began to settle in. The heroes had been driven away, but the fight wasn't over. "What comes next?" Ethan asked, looking at Lyra and Jalen. "We need to secure this area and ensure there are no further threats," Jalen replied, his focus unwavering. "And then we can decide the fate of the heroes. They've shown they won't stop unless we take a firm stance." Lyra nodded in agreement. "We can either give them a chance to redeem themselves or drive them completely out. The choice is ours." Ethan considered this. "We might be able to negotiate. Perhaps there's a way to communicate our resistance instead of outright destruction." "That's worth exploring," Jalen replied. "But for tonight, let's secure the area. We'll need to set up a watch." As they set to work examining the landscape and ensuring the safety of their home, their sense of unity grew stronger. Ethan could see that they had forged a bond, one that would allow them to face whatever challenges came next. Under the canopy of stars, a fire burned brightly as the citizens of Illithra celebrated their victory. Gratefulness swirled in Ethan's chest while the laughter echoed in the night air. "We did it together," he thought, looking at Lyra beside him, her eyes sparkling under the night sky. "What's next for us?" he asked quietly, grateful for her presence. "Whatever comes our way, I know we can face it together," she replied, her voice soft yet fierce. In that moment, Ethan felt a connection grow between them that had blossomed throughout the battle. Their unity strengthened by their fight for a future, not just for themselves but for Illithra as a whole.